He looked up at me with eyes too old for 8 years. "Grandma," he whispered, voice shaking, "please don't leave me with her." I swear my heart stopped. We weren't talking about monsters under the bed. He meant his stepmother. And when a child says something like that, you feel it in your bones. That cold, crawling kind of fear that tells you something's very wrong. Camille stood in the kitchen, smiling like a magazine ad, pouring orange juice into crystal glasses. Pretty, polished, dead behind the eyes. She waved at me like we were girlfriends, not two women standing on opposite sides of something rotten. "Eli's fine," she said sweetly. "Aren't you, honey?" He flinched. I noticed. She noticed that I noticed. I bent down, pretending to fix his shoe just to break her stare. That's when he slipped something into my hand. A crumpled note, trembling fingers. "Please read this when she's not looking." My stomach turned to ice. By the end of that night, there would be police cars outside Camille's perfect house. By morning, the truth would crawl out from under the walls she'd built, bruised, ugly, and loud. My name is Lila Mae Carter. I'm 56 years old and I've seen a lot of evil dressed in Sunday clothes. But nothing like this. Stay till the end. You'll understand why sometimes the devil doesn't knock. She opens the door, smiles wide, and says, "Welcome home." I used to think my son married a miracle. Camille came into his life when everything was falling apart. His wife gone too soon, a boy who woke up crying for a mother he'd never remember. She showed up like light through a crack, young, organized, kind to everyone at first. She called me Mama Lila before I knew what hit me. I wanted to believe she saved my son. Maybe she did, for a while. But miracles don't stare through you when they think you're not looking. They don't flinch when a child reaches for them. Eli was 5 when she married my son, and it didn't take long for things to shift. He stopped talking at dinner. He stopped drawing happy pictures. And once, when I asked if he wanted to sleep over, Camille said, "He needs structure, Lila. You make him too soft." Soft. That word hit me wrong. I raised 2 boys without breaking them. The next few years were quiet. Too quiet. I'd visit on weekends, bring cookies, check the fridge, little excuses to see Eli. He'd hug me hard, then pull away fast, eyes darting toward her. I told myself I was overthinking it. That's what we do, don't we? We tell ourselves we're paranoid because the truth is too ugly to fit inside polite conversation. Then came the little things, missing bruises that faded before I could name them. Excuses that didn't sound like a child's voice. He fell off his bike. He bumped the counter. He's clumsy. But he wasn't clumsy. He was careful, quiet, and afraid of being noticed. I tried talking to my son, Daniel, about it once. We were on the porch, sun low, the smell of grilled chicken in the air. "Do you ever think Camille's too hard on him?" I asked. He sighed, rubbing his temples. "Mom, she's strict, not cruel. Don't start this." "I'm not starting anything. I'm just saying—" He cut me off. "You've never liked her." And there it was. The invisible wall between mothers and sons. Once another woman calls him mine, you stop being heard the same way. I didn't push. I knew how that story ends. A grandmother turned villain, a child caught between. So I waited, watched. I made sure Eli always had a way to reach me. A phone number hidden in a school book, a spare key under the garden rock, just in case. Then that one Friday came. Daniel had a work trip. Camille offered to keep Eli for the weekend, said she wanted some bonding time. Her tone was too sweet, sugar-hiding vinegar. When I dropped off a batch of cookies that afternoon, Eli looked pale. He didn't say much. Camille smiled, said he was just tired. I noticed a faint mark near his wrist. I asked, "Rough day, baby?" He said nothing. Just looked at me like he was begging me to see it. That night, I couldn't sleep. Something in me knew. That quiet instinct every mother learns. The one that starts as a whisper and turns into a scream. The next morning, I went back. Camille opened the door in her robe, eyes wide like she didn't expect me. "Lila, we were just about to head out." I smiled tight. "Thought I'd take Eli for pancakes." Her smile cracked for half a second before she said, "He's still asleep." "I'll wake him," I said. She stepped aside, slow, and that's when I heard it. Faint crying, muffled, coming from his room. I pushed past her. She started saying something, but my blood was already boiling. I found him sitting on the edge of the bed, hands gripping his blanket, cheeks wet. He looked up at me, eyes red. Then he said it, the words that burned into me forever. "Please don't leave me with her." That whisper didn't leave me. It followed me home, sat at the edge of my bed, and stared through the dark like it was waiting for me to do something. I told myself I needed proof, something solid before I accused my son's wife of hurting his child. The next morning, I called Daniel. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice steady. "How's your trip going?" He sounded tired. "Fine, Mom. Camille said you stopped by yesterday. Everything okay?" I hesitated. "She said that?" He laughed softly. "Yeah, she said you're worried again." That word, again. He'd already chosen sides, and he didn't even know why. I hung up, sat at my kitchen table, and stared at Eli's note. The paper was creased, damp at the edges, his handwriting small and uneven. "She gets mad when I cry. Please don't tell Dad." My throat tightened. I could almost hear him saying it, whispering through tears while someone watched from the doorway. That was the day I decided to stop hoping and start watching. I called Camille later that week. "Mind if I take Eli for a few hours Saturday?" She hesitated, too long, then smiled through the phone. "Of course, Mama Lila. He misses you." She was lying. I could hear it. People think lies hide behind anger. They don't. They hide behind sweetness. Saturday came. Eli ran into my arms like he hadn't breathed in days. He didn't talk much, just stayed close. When I helped him take off his sweater, I saw it. A bruise on his shoulder, dark and fading at the edges. My chest locked up. "Baby, what happened?" He flinched. "Please don't tell her I told you." "Tell me what?" "She gets mad when I mess up. I spill things. I forget." He looked down, shame swallowing his words, like he believed it was his fault. That's when I realized she'd broken him. Not with fists, but with fear. That night, I couldn't sit still. I printed photos, wrote dates, kept a notebook, every mark, every excuse, every tremble. I wrote it all down. Because women like Camille don't get caught by accident. You have to build a wall of truth high enough that even denial can't climb it. A few weeks later, Daniel came home early. He called me, angry. "Mom, did you tell Eli to lie about Camille?" I froze. "What are you talking about?" "She said he made up stories after spending time with you." "Stories?" I said quietly. "Like bruises?" Silence. Then, "You're letting your imagination get to you." Imagination. That word made me want to scream. I raised that man. I bandaged his knees, fed him through every storm, and now I was the enemy. I didn't argue. I let him hang up, because something in me knew. The louder I defended myself, the more she'd win. From then on, I smiled in her face, but I was taking notes in the dark. Every lie she told, I recorded in my head. Every bruise, every trembling whisper, I documented quietly, waiting for the day her mask would crack. And soon, it did. Not with violence, but with a sound I'll never forget. Eli called me one night from the house phone, whispering so low I could barely hear. "Grandma," he said. "She locked me in the laundry room." My knees gave out. The line went dead. That was the moment the fracture became a break. After that call from Eli, I stopped pretending to sleep at night. I'd sit in the dark, listening to the old clock in my hallway tick like a nervous heartbeat. Each second reminded me that my grandson was somewhere else, counting minutes in fear. I called Daniel the next morning. He didn't pick up. When he finally called back, he sounded distracted, impatient. "Mom, you can't keep scaring him," he said flatly. "Scaring him?" I repeated, trying to stay calm. "He's scared because she—" He cut me off. "Camille says you're making him anxious. He's a sensitive kid." My grip on the phone tightened. "Daniel," I said softly. "He told me she locked him in the laundry room." He sighed. That long exhale that means I don't believe you, but I don't want to fight. "Mom, you always imagine the worst." He probably misunderstood something. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. Because mothers know, when you push too hard, you lose your sons faster. So I swallowed it. For now. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a notebook. I wrote everything I knew, every bruise, every excuse, every whisper that didn't sound like a lie. I underlined dates, drew arrows, wrote her name in capital letters like it was evidence. Because one day, it would be. When Camille came by the next week, she brought flowers, bright lilies, too fragrant, too perfect. She smiled like she'd won. "Just wanted to say thank you for always helping with Eli." I smiled back. "Of course, I love him." Her eyes narrowed, just slightly. A flash of irritation that disappeared behind her polished grin. She was testing me, and I wanted her to think she was winning. Eli came for a short visit that weekend. He barely spoke, just drew little circles on the table with his finger while I made him cocoa. When he lifted the cup, I saw a faint bruise across his forearm. I froze. "Sweetheart, what happened here?" he whispered. "It's fine, Grandma." I fell. He looked away too fast, voice too rehearsed. After he left, I called child services. Anonymous, nervous. The woman on the line asked questions like she was filling in boxes. "How long has this been going on?" "Months," I said, "maybe years." "Do you have proof?" "I have notes, photos, a recording." She said she'd submit it for review. Weeks passed, nothing. When I followed up, another woman told me, "Ma'am, there's no visible pattern of harm. We can't open an investigation without concrete evidence." Concrete. You know what's not concrete? Fear. You can't photograph it, you can't weigh it, but you can feel it pressing against your chest when you tuck a child into bed and realize he might not be safe anywhere. So I found another way. I bought a tiny recorder online, smaller than a thumb, and stitched it into a teddy bear. When Eli visited, I handed it to him. He smiled for the first time in weeks. "For me?" "For you," I said, keeping my tone light. That night, I sat in my car outside my house listening to the recording, Camille's voice sharp as glass. "Stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about." And Eli's voice, small, trembling, "I'm sorry." I covered my mouth, shaking. It wasn't the words, it was the tone. Controlled, cruel, almost calm, like she enjoyed the fear she created. I played that clip over and over until it didn't sound like sound anymore, just noise that lived under my skin. When Daniel called later that week, he sounded frustrated. "Camille says you're interfering again. What's going on, Mom?" I said nothing for a long time. Then quietly, "If you won't protect him, I will." He laughed bitterly. "From what?" "From her," I said. "Mom," he snapped, "you're obsessed. You need to stop." He hung up before I could answer. The silence that followed felt heavier than grief. It felt like betrayal. That's when something inside me changed. I realized I wasn't going to convince him with words. I'd need proof, undeniable, unshakable proof. So I started building my own case piece by piece. Every bruise, every recording, every lie she told became a brick. And I promised myself, the day that wall was high enough, she'd have nowhere left to hide. Until then, I smiled in her face, because sometimes survival looks like patience, and sometimes love looks like war in disguise. Saturday started normal, and that was the first lie. Sun up, coffee on, laundry humming. I told myself routine meant safety. At 9:12 a.m., the school counselor emailed me, not Daniel, me. Subject line, checking on Eli. Inside was one sentence that hit like a hammer. He told me he gets put away when he cries. I grabbed my keys. Camille's SUV sat in the driveway when I pulled up. Music inside the house. Too loud for morning. I rang the bell. No answer. I knocked harder. "Camille, it's Lila." Silence. Then footsteps. The music clicked off. She opened the door with a bright smile that didn't touch her eyes. "Surprise visit?" she asked, breezy. "Pancakes," I lied. I promised him. Her gaze flicked past my shoulder, calculating. "He's busy, piano practice," she said. "Maybe tomorrow." A dry click sounded down the hall. Metal on metal. I stepped past her before she could stop me. "Lila," she warned low, "you're not welcome to—" Then I heard it. A soft thump. A small inhale like someone learning to breathe quietly. The sound came from the laundry room. The door was shut, the dryer ran on high, heat pouring through the seam. I tried the handle. Locked. "Open it," I said. She folded her arms. "No. Now," I said, voice flat, "or I call the police." Her jaw clenched. "He needs consequences. You coddle him." I pulled the drawer from the entry table and found the keys. Third try. The lock turned. Heat slapped my face. Eli sat on the floor, back against the washer, cheeks red, shirt damp, eyes unfocused. The tiny teddy bear I'd stitched the recorder into lay near his shoe. He looked up, confused, and tried to stand. His knees buckled. I caught him. "Grandma?" he whispered. "It's okay," I said. "You're okay." Behind me, Camille hissed, "Don't be dramatic, Lila. He was cooling off." "In an oven?" I snapped. "What did you give him?" "Nothing," she said too fast. Eli swayed. His pupils were wrong, wide and glassy. I pulled my phone, dialing 911 with my thumb, while I kept my voice calm for him. "Sweetheart, did you eat anything new? Drink anything?" He blinked slowly. "Drops," he murmured, "for quiet." My fingers tightened around the phone. "Camille," I said, not looking at her, "bring whatever drops you used." She hesitated a second too long, then stormed to the kitchen. I scooped Eli into my lap and felt his skin, hot to the touch, breath shallow. "Stay with me," I whispered. "Stay right here." The operator answered. I gave the address, the symptoms, the words every grandmother hopes to never learn: altered, dehydrated, overheated. Camille returned with a small amber bottle, label half torn, "Call Me's Kids, Natural Blend." The back listed nothing I trusted. Another bottle sat behind it. "Prescription sedatives," Daniel's name on the label. I went still. "Did you mix these?" I asked. She rolled her eyes. "A few drops help him sleep. He screams over nothing." "He's 8, I said. "Screaming is a language." Eli's head dipped. His body went slack. The seconds between his breaths stretched. "Eli," I whispered, "look at me." He tried. He couldn't. Sirens grew louder. Camille looked toward the window like she was deciding whether to run. "Don't you move," I said. 2 EMTs rushed in. One checked vitals. The other started cooling measures. Whispering, "Heat, stress, and sedative interaction. We've got him." Camille hovered like a moth near a flame she didn't understand. "He was fine," she insisted. "He's dramatic. Lila is—" "Ma'am, step back," the medic said, professional and cold. They lifted Eli onto the stretcher. He reached for me without opening his eyes. I took his hand and walked beside him all the way to the ambulance. At the hospital, the questions came fast. What did he ingest? How long in the heat? Any history of seizures? I answered what I could. The rest lived in the quiet between my ribs. A doctor with gray at his temples met us in the pediatric bay. "We're stabilizing him," he said, voice even. "He's dehydrated, mildly sedated, and overheated. We're running labs." He glanced at the nurse holding the bottles. "Who administered these?" he asked. I looked at Camille. She looked at the ceiling. He said, "Will involve social services. Do you have guardianship?" "Not yet," I said. "I will." Daniel arrived 15 minutes later, out of breath, face pale. "What happened?" he demanded. I kept my eyes on the monitor. "Ask your wife." He turned to Camille. She launched first. Your mother broke into our house, Daniel. She's trying to... I held up the amber bottle and the prescription. She mixed them, I said. Then locked him in the laundry room with the dryer running. Daniel stared like the words didn't fit inside his skull. That's not true, Camille said. She hates me. The nurse stepped forward. Security camera captured the handoff, ma'am. You gave him the bottle. Camille's mask cracked, just a hairline fracture, but enough. Everyone is hysterical, she snapped. He's a difficult child. The doctor returned with a social worker. He spoke carefully like he was putting a glass bowl on a counter and didn't want it to shatter. Your son has sedatives in his system and signs of heat stress, he told Daniel. This is not accidental. We're filing an immediate report. Daniel's shoulders sagged. He looked at me finally. Really looked. Mom? He whispered. I didn't say I told you so. I said, sit down. Your son needs you steady. The social worker asked to speak privately. We sat in a small room with bad art and good tissues. She asked me about the note, the recordings, the bruises. I handed her my folder, dates, photos, the audio clip copied on a thumb drive. Her eyes widened at the organization, then softened at the content. This is substantial, she said. We'll file for emergency protective custody. Back in the hallway, Camille paced like a trapped thing. When she saw the social worker with my folder, she lunged for it. Security stepped in. Her voice rose, finally loud enough for everyone to hear what I'd been hearing all along. You people don't understand, she shouted. He needs discipline. He makes everything harder. Daniel flinched like the words hit him physically. He looked at the doctor, at the nurse, at me. Then his mouth firmed into something that looked like the man I raised. He said quietly, Camille, go home. She laughed, high and brittle. This is my home. Not anymore, he said, and turned his back. Eli stirred an hour later, blinking against the light. Grandma? I leaned close. I'm here. He swallowed, voice thin. Am I in trouble? No, I said. You're safe. The detective arrived as evening fell, a woman with calm eyes and a notebook she actually used. She asked careful questions, then listened to the recording from the teddy bear. When Camille's voice filled the tiny speaker, the detective's jaw tightened. Thank you for documenting, she said. It makes a difference. Security escorted Camille from the pediatric floor when she tried to get to Eli's room. At the elevator, she turned and saw me. For a second, the mask came all the way off. No smile, no charm, just the flat glare of someone who finally met a wall she couldn't push through. She mouthed, This isn't over. I didn't answer. Some threats deserve silence. It starves them. That night, the hospital granted temporary no contact. The social worker filed the emergency petition. Daniel slept in the chair by Eli's bed, one hand on the rail like he was keeping the world from shaking loose. I stepped into the hallway and called my lawyer. Ms. Hahn, I said, I need to move fast. I want guardianship paperwork started tonight. I have recordings, dates, and a doctor ready to testify. She didn't hesitate. Email everything. I'll draft the emergency filing. I hung up and looked at the window. The city reflected in the glass, the room behind me small and bright. I thought about the first time Camille called me Mama Lila, about the school's email, about an 8-year-old's whisper pressed into my neck like a prayer. By midnight, a detective had my folder, a lawyer had my case, and a child who thought he was alone was finally sleeping without fear. That was the moment the story turned. Not with a scream, not with a slap, with paperwork, hospital lights, and a voice that finally believed him. Stay with me, because tomorrow we stop surviving and start fighting. The morning after the hospital, nothing felt real. Eli slept curled on his side, one hand still clutching that worn-out teddy bear, the one that caught everything. The steady beep of the monitor was the only sound keeping me upright. Daniel sat in the corner, hollow-eyed, staring through the linoleum. Every so often, he'd whisper, "How did I not see it?" I didn't answer. Shame has its own echo. At 9 sharp, the detective came back. Detective Ruiz, calm and steady. She pulled out a recorder, pressed the red button. "Mrs. Carter," she said, "I need you to walk me through everything, start to finish." I handed her my notebook instead. "It's all there," I said. "Dates, bruises, lies, and her voice." She flipped through it slowly. "You documented better than most trained investigators." I didn't know whether to feel proud or sick. "I wasn't investigating," I said. "I was trying to keep him alive." By noon, hospital security delivered the copy of the hallway footage. Camille slipping a bottle into her purse, checking over her shoulder, walking back into the house like she'd done it before. Ruiz nodded toward the screen. "This supports felony neglect. Possibly assault." She paused, eyes narrowing. "But there's something else." "What?" I asked. "She's been moving money," Ruiz said. "Your son's accounts, loans, transfers, all under her authorization." I blinked. "What are you saying?" Ruiz leaned back. "We're looking at financial abuse, too. It's not just the boy." For a moment, the world tilted again. Camille wasn't just cruel. She was strategic. She wasn't punishing Eli. She was controlling Daniel. Isolate the child, guilt the father, control the home. Classic predator behavior. Ruiz promised to pull financial records, but I could tell she needed more. Hard copies, not screenshots. I already had them. I'd started printing every bank alert that came through my son's email months ago. He'd given me access once, back when he still trusted me to help with his taxes. "Here," I said, pulling out a small folder from my bag. Her brows lifted. "You kept everything." "Everything," I said, because I knew one day someone would stop pretending not to see. That afternoon, Camille called. Blocked number, but I knew her voice. Smooth, icy calm. "You think you've won," she said. "I don't need to win," I replied. "I just need him safe." She laughed, a brittle sound that cracked halfway through. "You made him weak, Lila, just like you made your son weak." "I made them kind," I said quietly. "You mistook that for weakness." She hung up. Minutes later, Ruiz texted, "We traced the call. Don't engage again." But I was already thinking ahead. Camille wouldn't vanish quietly. Women like her never do. They circle, waiting for sympathy to run out, then twist the story back to themselves. By the next day, she was all over social media, posting photos of Eli, hospital bracelets blurred out, captions dripping pity. "Pray for our family," she wrote. "False accusations destroy lives." Thousands of hearts, dozens of comments calling her strong and unfairly blamed. Daniel saw it and nearly broke. "She's turning everyone against me," he said. "She's desperate," I told him. "Desperation makes liars creative." Still, it worked. People started messaging him, asking questions, planting doubt. Even his boss called, politely suggesting he manage the optics. That's when Ruiz said the words that finally gave us a lifeline. "The recordings and hospital report are enough for a warrant. We'll bring her in tonight." Evening fell heavy. Eli woke briefly, asked for water, then whispered, "Will she come back?" I brushed his hair back. "Not if I can help it." He frowned. "Grandma?" "Yes, baby. I had a dream you were my mom now." That broke me a little, right there by the IV stand. I smiled anyway. Then I guess I've got more to live for. At 9:46 p.m., Ruiz called. "She's in custody," she said. "We found more. Emails, transfers, deleted messages. She wasn't just hurting him, Lila. She was planning to leave with everything." My knees nearly gave out. I gripped the edge of the counter, staring at the phone. Somehow, justice didn't feel like relief yet. It felt like aftermath, quiet, heavy, and unfinished, because every lie leaves pieces behind. And I knew the biggest one hadn't surfaced yet. I could feel it, like static in the air before lightning hits. The next morning, the air in the hospital felt different, lighter, but not clean. Like the storm had passed, but left smoke behind. Eli was stable, sleeping, one arm hooked to an IV. Daniel hadn't moved from the chair all night. He looked older, hollowed out, his wedding ring missing. Detective Ruiz came in holding a manila envelope. "We executed the search warrant," she said. "You'll want to sit down for this." Daniel straightened. Did Camille confess?" Ruiz shook her head. "Not exactly, but she didn't need to." She opened the folder and spread out the papers like cards in a bad deck. Bank statements, wire transfers, digital invoices. "She moved money from your joint account," Ruiz said, pointing, "then transferred funds from an old trust, your late wife's." Daniel's jaw tightened. "What trust?" Ruiz looked at me. "You didn't know?" I leaned forward. "His first wife, Hannah. She set up a fund for Eli before she passed. College, health, security." Ruiz nodded. "It was never touched until Camille." She pointed to the next page. 6 months ago, she withdrew $75,000 and wired it to a new account under her maiden name." Daniel's breath caught. "That's theft," Ruiz added, "and fraud. She forged your signature for the access." Silence stretched thin between us. I felt that mix of fury and heartbreak that only comes when betrayal stops being abstract. Ruiz went on. "We also found messages. She'd been talking to a man named Victor Lee, accountant from her previous firm." Daniel frowned. "Who is he?" "Her ex-fiancé," Ruiz said. "He's been helping her hide assets, and he's the one who ordered sedatives under your name." Daniel pushed his chair back, face pale. "So she was planning this, all of it." Ruiz nodded slowly. "Looks like she was building an exit plan. Money, identity, even fake custody papers." "Custody?" I asked. Ruiz flipped another page. "She filed a draft motion, unsubmitted but ready, to claim you and your mother were unfit. She planned to take Eli and disappear." The room went quiet. Daniel's hands were shaking. "She said she loved him," he whispered. I said softly, "People like her love control, not people." 2 days later, the detective called again. "Camille's lawyer is pushing for bail," she said. "We need a statement from Eli, a short one." I hesitated. "He's still recovering." Ruiz sighed. "I know, but hearing from him will close this case faster. We'll make it gentle." When she arrived that afternoon, Eli sat propped on pillows, clutching his bear. Ruiz knelt beside him, voice gentle. "Do you remember what happened, sweetheart?" He nodded slowly. "Can you tell me what she gave you?" He looked down. "She said it would make me quiet, because I talk too much." His small voice cracked on the word quiet. I pressed my hand against my chest. Ruiz nodded. "That's enough, buddy. You did so good." Eli's eyes flicked toward me. "Is she gone?" "She won't hurt you again," I said. When Ruiz left, she handed me her card. "We'll have the formal hearing soon. I'd recommend you and your lawyer file for full guardianship." I nodded, though my mind was spinning. Even now, Camille's reach lingered. In the documents, in the bills Daniel hadn't opened, in the trust fund Hannah had died trying to protect. That night, Daniel finally spoke. "She said she was helping," he murmured. "After Hannah died, I was broken. She handled everything. Bills, schedules, Eli." "She handled you," I said quietly. He rubbed his face. I didn't want to see it. I kept thinking if I just worked harder, she'd stop being angry. I looked at him, my son who'd grown into a man but still carried that boyish ache to be loved right. "Love doesn't need you smaller," I said. "It meets you where you are." He nodded, eyes red. "I'm sorry, Mom," he whispered. "Don't be," I said. "Just don't let her win by breaking you too." 2 weeks later, the trial hearing began. Camille walked in, wearing beige and pity, the costume of every manipulator who finally lost control. Her lawyer argued she'd been misunderstood, overwhelmed, trying her best. But the evidence spoke louder than she ever could. The audio recording played for the court. Her voice filled the room. "Stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about." Gasps rippled through the gallery. Daniel flinched. I reached for his hand. Then the financial documents appeared. The trust withdrawals, the forged signatures, the fake custody draft. Each one sliced through her defense until there was nothing left but silence. When it was over, the judge spoke plainly. Custody of the minor, Eli Carter, is granted temporarily to his grandmother, pending full review. Defendant Camille Carter is remanded without bail. Her composure cracked for the first time. She turned toward me, eyes dark. "You think you're saving him," she hissed. "You're just teaching him fear." I looked at her calmly. "No, I'm teaching him what safety feels like." Outside the courthouse, the air felt cleaner than it had in months. Daniel stood beside me, quiet, staring at the press gathering by the steps. He said, "She fooled everyone, didn't she?" I nodded. "That's what poison does. It hides in sweetness." Eli ran up, hand in mine, smiling for the first time like a child should. When he asked if we could go home, I realized we finally could. That night, I walked into his new room. Soft blankets, a small desk, a window that opened to the garden. On the nightstand sat a framed photo of Hannah holding baby Eli, both of them laughing. He pointed to it. "She looks like you," he said. I smiled faintly. "Maybe a little." He tilted his head. "Can I sleep with the light on?" "Of course," I said. "However you need," he whispered. "I don't hear her voice anymore." I brushed his hair. "That's because she's gone." But as I turned off the hall light, I realized something else. Her voice might be gone, but her shadow wasn't. Not yet, because survival doesn't end when the danger's over. It ends when the fear finally stops knocking. And for the first time, I knew we were getting there. 3 weeks after the hearing, I got the call I'd been waiting for and dreading. Detective Ruiz's voice was calm, clipped, but there was something in her tone that said unfinished business. "She's requesting to see you," she said. "Camille, she's at county. She says she'll only talk to you." I didn't answer right away. I watched Eli playing outside the window, sunlight catching in his curls, laughter spilling out like the world had forgiven him. I thought of the laundry room, the heat, the pills. And then I said, "Tell her I'll come." The jail visiting room smelled like bleach and cold metal. Camille was already seated, hands folded, hair perfectly brushed. Even behind bars, she couldn't resist the performance. When she looked up, her smile was small, practiced. "You look tired, Lila," she said softly. "Guilt doesn't suit you." I sat across from her. "You wanted to talk, so talk." She tilted her head, studying me. "You always thought you were the hero, didn't you? The savior grandmother swooping in." I said nothing. Silence is sometimes sharper than words. She leaned closer to the glass. "He told me everything, you know, about his mother, about you, how you made him feel small when he didn't listen." "Eli?" I asked, though I already knew she didn't mean the boy. "No," she said, smiling. "Daniel." For a moment, my pulse faltered. She knew exactly where to cut. "I was there for him," she continued, "when you couldn't be. You think I used him? Maybe. But I also loved him, in my own way." I clenched my jaw. "You don't drug people you love." Her lips twitched. "You don't ignore them either. You built that house, filled it with silence, and called it family. I just stepped into the space you left empty." There it was, the rot underneath her charm. She wasn't just cruel. She was convinced she was right. "You hurt a child," I said quietly. "Because you couldn't control a man." Her expression hardened. He was slipping away. I could feel it. And the boy, he looked at me like he knew. She exhaled, eyes flickering. "He reminded me of the baby I lost." The words hit the air like a gun misfiring. Soft, deadly. I blinked. "You lost a child?" She nodded once. "Years ago, before Daniel, before all of this." She looked down at her hands. I thought I could start over. But every time Eli cried, it felt like punishment. For a second, just one, I saw the broken part of her, the one that didn't excuse anything, but explained everything. She was a woman who turned grief into cruelty because she couldn't stand to look at the ashes of her own pain. I said quietly, "You could have asked for help." She laughed, bitter. "Help? Women like me don't get help. We get blamed." Then her eyes locked onto mine. "You think you saved him, but you didn't. You just made him yours. And one day, he'll grow up, and he'll leave you too." She wanted a reaction, a flicker of doubt, anything to feed on, but I was done giving her that power. I leaned forward and whispered, "Then I'll still have done better than you." For the first time, her mask cracked completely. Tears welled up, not soft ones, but furious ones. "You took everything from me," she hissed. "No," I said. "You burned it yourself." The guard tapped the glass. "Time's up." Camille stood, smoothing her jumpsuit like a queen adjusting her gown. "I'll appeal," she said. "You'll see me again." "Maybe," I said, "but next time you'll be behind glass and I'll be free." When I walked out, the sunlight hit my face like a slap and a blessing all at once. Ruiz was waiting near the parking lot. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded. "She's broken beyond repair." Ruiz sighed. "Most of them are. You did what you had to." We stood there for a moment, two women who'd seen too much truth to still believe in neat endings. "Will she really appeal?" I asked. "Probably," Ruiz said. "But the evidence is airtight. She won't get far." I exhaled. "Then I'm done looking back." When I got home, Eli ran to the door, clutching a drawing. It was the two of us, him and me, holding hands in front of a big, crooked house. He'd written in block letters, "Me plus Grandma, you're safe." For the first time in months, my chest didn't ache when I smiled. I hung the drawing on the fridge right beside Hannah's old recipe for cinnamon rolls. And as I looked at it, I realized something simple but heavy. Sometimes redemption doesn't come from forgiveness. It comes from finally choosing peace and meaning it. Justice didn't roar. It signed. Petitions, injunctions, subpoenas, every page a step away from fear. Ms. Hahn met me at dawn with coffee and a plan. "We move on 3 fronts," she said, "custody, criminal, and civil." First, custody. We filed for permanent guardianship with every exhibit numbered and clean. Dates, photos, pediatric reports, the teddy bear audio, and the hospital labs. Daniel signed beside me with a shaking hand. "I should have protected him sooner," he whispered. "You are now," I said. "That's what counts." Next, criminal. Detective Ruiz delivered the chain of custody packet like a brick. The DA reviewed it, expression flat and grim. "Felony child endangerment, fraud, identity theft," he said. "We'll stack them." Camille's bail motion died in the hallway. Her lawyer argued exhaustion and good intentions. The judge didn't blink. Then civil. We sued for the trust fund and every penny stolen. Ms. Hahn added Victor Lee to the caption. "Joint and several liability," she said, voice like a gavel. "If he helped hide the money, he pays to return it." I thought justice would feel like thunder. Mostly, it felt like careful breathing. Eli slept through the night for the first time in weeks. He woke asking for pancakes and extra blueberries. 2 towers, he said, stacking them with sticky fingers. "Strong ones," I answered, and he smiled. We met with a child therapist named Dr. Klein. Soft voice, sharp notes, no wasted words. She taught Eli to name feelings without apologizing for them. She taught me how to listen without searching for danger in every sound. "Safety isn't a room," she said. "It's a pattern that repeats." At home, I made the house repeat it. No locked interior doors, no raised voices past dinner, a nightlight in the hallway, and the rule that grown-ups also say sorry. Every Sunday, we cooked one recipe from Hannah's old box: cinnamon rolls, chicken spaghetti, the peach cobbler she burned the first time and laughed about for months. We said her name out loud so memory felt warm, not haunted. Daniel started therapy too. He came home one evening and stood in the doorway longer than usual. "Mom," he said, "I've been apologizing to the wrong person." He looked at Eli coloring on the rug. I kept trying to fix a woman who liked me broken. I nodded. Then stop fixing and start building. He sat down on the floor with his son. That was the first time I saw them breathe in sync. Camille tried to fight from county, letters through her attorney, posts through friends, a curated sorrow online. False accusations, the captions read. Pray for justice. Ruiz called it noise. Ms. Hahn called it strategy. I called it over. 2 months in, we had the civil deposition. A gray room, a long table, and a microphone that caught everything you couldn't take back. Camille wore the beige again, the costume of remorse. Ms. Hahn slid the audio transcript across the table. Line 12, she said. Is that your voice? Camille swallowed. It's hard to tell. Ms. Hahn pressed play. Stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about. The reporter didn't look up. Answer? She said, bored as a clock. Camille whispered, yes. Then the bank statements, then the fake custody draft, then the prescription refill history under Daniel's name. Every page clicked into place like teeth. Camille's lawyer objected to air molecules. It didn't matter. The record was the record. I didn't gloat. I didn't soften. Justice isn't a performance. It's a boundary that finally holds. When it ended, Camille's eyes found mine. You're not a saint, she muttered. I never auditioned, I said, standing. The criminal trial date landed faster than we expected. Victor flipped first. Men like him always do. He gave the password to the Shell account, the messages, the plan. They had a flight booked for October. 2 seats. One way. Elise waiting under an alias. Eli's name wasn't on anything. He was bait and leverage. My hands shook for an hour after I read it. I held Eli's backpack like it was armor. We won guardianship the following week. Permanent, not provisional. The judge looked over her glasses and said, Mrs. Carter, thank you for documenting. You saved this child's life. I nodded because if I spoke, I'd cry in a room that didn't have tissues big enough. Justice wasn't just about our house, though. I kept thinking of the counselor's email, the intake lady's script, the weeks where insufficient evidence meant a child waited for a grown-up to get brave. So I started something small and stubborn. The Hannah and Eli Project, free consults for grandparents and single parents who suspected harm but didn't know how to build a case. Ms. Hahn agreed to host monthly clinics. Ruiz sent a retired detective to teach evidence basics. Dr. Klein offered a sliding scale and a room with soft chairs and firm truths. The first night, 8 people came. By the 3rd month, there were 30. Quiet warriors, all of them. We created a checklist that fit on 1 page. Dates, photos in natural light. No leading questions, only what happened next. Save texts as PDFs, not screenshots. Audio without entrapment. Everything labeled like you expect a stranger to read it one day, because they might. I thought vengeance would taste sweet. It didn't. It tasted like black coffee in early mornings and a printer that always needed paper. It tasted like sitting in the back of a courtroom while a recorder clicked and a life rearranged itself into a new shape that didn't wobble. Still, there were moments that felt like victory. The day Eli laughed so hard milk shot out his nose. The day Daniel took off his ring and didn't put it back on. The afternoon the school called to say Eli raised his hand twice and read aloud without shaking. Tiny fireworks, everyone. Camille's sentencing came with rain. She stood up straight and didn't apologize. The judge listed each count with a patience I admired. Time for the child. Time for the theft. Time for the paper, lies that tried to make the truth smaller. When it ended, the math landed on years, not months. The bailiff led her away. She never looked back. Outside, reporters asked for statements. Daniel said, "My son is safe," I said. "Teach your children that kindness is not consent to be hurt." Then we went home because there was homework and spaghetti night and a spelling test tomorrow. Later that week, I mailed Hannah's framed diploma to the Hannah and Eli Project wall. She had wanted to be a counselor, Life had other plans. I decided to let both plans live. We framed the checklist beside it like a recipe for the kind of stubborn love that fixes nothing overnight and still wins. One more thing remained: the house. Daniel put it on the market without ceremony. "Every room echoes her," he said. "I want walls that don't remember." We packed in 2 days. Eli chose the blue quilt and the dinosaur lamp and the drawing from the fridge. Me plus Grandma. Safe. We hung it first in the new place. That's how you claim a house. Not with a deed, but with a truth that repeats. On the first quiet night, I stood at the sink while Eli brushed his teeth. Daniel dried plates and set them in neat stacks. "Mom," he said, "what do we do now?" "Now," I answered. "We live like no one is hiding." He nodded, and for once it felt like an answer that didn't need editing. Revenge never showed up with fireworks. It showed up with boundaries that didn't bend and a calendar that wasn't afraid of weekends. It showed up when Eli said, "Good night," and didn't ask if the light could stay on, and then asked anyway, and we left it on because safety isn't a test you have to pass. I lay down and stared at the ceiling and let the quiet be quiet. Our story had torn itself open and then stitched itself closed with thread we chose. We didn't win because she lost. We won because we stopped living under her shadow. And that, finally, felt like justice. It's strange how peace doesn't arrive with trumpets. It creeps in, quietly on a Tuesday morning, when the coffee tastes right and no one flinches at sudden sounds. 3 months after the sentencing, our lives began to sound normal again, the kind of normal that doesn't demand attention. Eli went back to school, new backpack, new teacher, same shy smile. He had nightmares less often, and when he did, he'd come to my room, crawl under the blanket, and whisper, "Just until it's light again." And I'd say, "Stay as long as you need." Daniel found work again, part-time at first, then steady hours. He started cooking dinner some nights. He laughed more easily, though sometimes the laughter broke halfway through. Like his body still didn't believe it was allowed. Healing isn't a straight line. It's a circle that keeps getting wider. Every Saturday morning, Eli and I planted something new in the little garden behind our townhouse. Lavender, tomatoes, even a stubborn rose bush that refused to bloom for weeks. "Maybe it's scared," Eli said one day, patting the soil. "Maybe," I said, "but it'll learn the light's safe now." He nodded like he understood something bigger than gardening. The Hannah and Eli project kept growing. People I'd never met wrote letters. Grandparents, mothers, teachers, all saying the same thing. I thought no one would believe me either. We didn't save everyone, but we taught them how to document, how to persist, how to stop asking permission to protect a child. That felt like legacy. One afternoon, Mizaki Han stopped by with a framed certificate from the city. "Community Advocate Award," it said. I laughed. "I didn't advocate, I just refused to quit." She smiled. "That's the same thing." Daniel came by later that evening, holding an envelope. He sat down across from me, eyes soft but steady. "I wanted to show you something," he said, sliding it over. Inside was a handwritten letter. Camille's. "Came through legal," he said. "They screen everything, but this one passed." I hesitated, then unfolded it. "Lila, you won." But it doesn't feel like I lost. I see now that what I called love was hunger. And you can't feed hunger with control. I hope he forgets my voice. I hope you remember that even monsters are made, not born. See, I set it down. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Finally, Daniel said, "What do we do with it?" "Nothing," I said. "Let it be a reminder, not a seed." He nodded, folded it back up, and tucked it away. Some truths don't need burning. They just need burying. That night, after Eli went to bed, I sat by the window with tea and watched the garden. The rose bush had bloomed, faint, trembling petals, but alive. I thought about Hannah, about Camille, about every woman who ever mistook endurance for love, and about the boy sleeping down the hall who would grow up knowing the difference. For the first time in years, I felt still. Not empty, just still. Peace doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering without shaking. A few weeks later, we celebrated Eli's 8th birthday. No noise, no big party. Just us, a cake, and the people who had stayed when the truth turned ugly. When he blew out the candles, he made a wish and grinned. I asked, "What did you wish for?" He said, "That we never stop feeling safe." I laughed. "The kind that comes from somewhere deep. Then that's one wish I'll help you keep," I told him. After everyone left, I stood in the kitchen alone for a moment. The cake knife gleamed in the sink, and the smell of frosting still hung in the air. I thought of the first time this story began, the whisper, the fear, the helplessness, and realized how far we'd come. Sometimes survival looks like paperwork and sleepless nights. Sometimes it looks like a rose finally blooming after months of silence. And sometimes it's just a little boy sleeping without nightmares, and a woman who finally stopped waiting for the other shoe to drop. That was our ending. Not cinematic, not loud, but earned. And maybe that's what redemption really is, when the noise finally stops and you realize the quiet belongs to you again. 5 years later, our house is quiet, the safe kind of quiet. Eli's 13 now, all legs and laughter, no more nightmares. Daniel's healing too, lighter somehow, like the guilt finally let go. The garden still blooms, roses, lavender, even that stubborn peach tree that refused to die. The Hannah and Eli project grew bigger than I ever dreamed. We don't just tell stories now, we teach people how to survive theirs. I keep one thing from the past: Camille's letter, sealed, unread. Not out of hate, but to remember what peace cost us. If you've ever had to fight for safety or choose truth over silence, this story was yours too. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps me keep sharing these truths that too many women live quietly. And tell me in the comments, where in the world are you listening from? I love knowing how far these stories travel.